Well, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Angie Hauser, and I am the Continuing Education Coordinator and a Public Library Service Specialist at the North Dakota State Library. So without further ado, I'm going to hand this over to Jeremy Ballum from Lincoln Parish Library in Ruston, Louisiana. Take it over, Jeremy.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for connecting with us today for my presentation. I'm at a small to medium-sized library, Lincoln Parish in Ruston, Louisiana. Lincoln Parish and Ruston are basically famous for peaches and for Louisiana Tech University and for Grambling State University, which is a historically Black college in the nation. For today, I'm going to be talking to you about principles that I've gone gung-ho about from Simon Sinek. If those of you who are familiar with Simon Sinek, then you probably already know something about his golden circle concept. And I first heard Simon in 2014 at PLA at one of those big idea talks that were early in the morning. And it took me a while to finally get around to his book, Start With Why, but once I did, I knew it was something special for me. And then in 2017, I was lucky enough to get to go to one of the live workshops, not with Simon, but with some of his team members that work for his company, to actually go through the process of finding one's why and how all that connects with your life and work and all that kind of stuff. So as they say in some circles, I've drunk the Kool-Aid and I'm here to sell it to you in a specific kind of way, I guess. But I've also found a way to connect all this to libraries and librarianship and the concept of, which isn't so prevalent right now, but burnout and how that can be a problem for all of us. But I'm sure that even with COVID-19 going on and stay-at-home orders, and now that people have become full-time mom and dads again, and full-time homeschoolers for some children, and full-time spouses, there may be a little bit of burnout there as well. So you can always adapt just about everything that you hear. I do want to also mention a note about my slides. Anything that's on an orange burst slide that looks similar to the one you're looking at right here is either my original content or summaries, insights that I've put on top of Simon Sinek's information. There's also going to be some white slides. Those are direct from Simon Sinek's Start With Why website. So when you get the handout for the slides, it's going to have a link for you to get that. He provides those free for use to circulate and present to whoever wants to use those. So I encourage you to do so as well. And any full-size slide photos come courtesy of our friends at Pixabay, who are all so very generous with sharing their photos with us. So I'm going to go ahead and jump right into the presentation. So we've all been here where we can't basically can't take it anymore. We're working and moving at max velocity. And often, too often, we reach this state and we don't know what to do with ourselves. We've reached burnout, and if left unattended, this can lead to job dysfunction and job dissatisfaction. So the definition of burnout that works best in a work environment is exhaustion of physical or emotional strength or motivation, usually as a result of prolonged stress or frustration, which I guess does really correlate to the state of times that we're in right now, because we're definitely in a prolonged state of stress and frustration. So actually, when I went to the workshop with Simon's people, they gave me a statistic that said out of 3 billion employed people worldwide, and of course that number is unfortunately lower, 13%, only 13% are actually happy and engaged with the job that they do on a regular basis. But I also wanted to see how does that measure up for libraries? And luckily, our friends at Library Journal did a job satisfaction survey back in 2013, and they surveyed 3,200 librarians across all fields of librarianship. And in most cases, 1/3 of librarians surveyed fall below what I would consider completely satisfied, because they're somewhat satisfied, which means that there is the opportunity to fall backwards into a problem area, which leads to job resentment and coworker resentment, all those kind of problems that would lead to burnout and job dissatisfaction. And unfortunately, the problem is emotional. We are emotional creatures. We're human. We're not Vulcan. And even as librarians, we can't, build that fort of empathy that doesn't protect you at all given times. So the problem with feelings is that they're tied closely to perception, and the two of those will wrangle together and then decide what your action is going to be. And then you have a choice to either follow the path of engagement, which leads, of course, to job satisfaction and happiness, or to go down the path where you get to disconnection, and that, of course, leads to burnout. And we want to stay on that path to engagement. So if you get disconnected, of course, you're stressed out. You become apathetic, which is one of the things that we don't need in our profession specifically. And you may find yourself with nothing left to give everyone, and look a little bit like this match on the screen. So how do you go from something like that to a vibrant person overflowing with constant and flowering passion that draws others to you? To get to the root of the matter, I'm gonna jump into Simon Sinek's golden circle principle, because really there is one word that can describe all of it, and the only word that you need to remember is why. So why is it that some leaders and organizations inspire greater loyalty and engagement among customers and employees alike than others do? They're able to achieve and sustain an inordinate amount of success year after year. They are great and inspiring leaders and organizations. What they do is they act and communicate in the same way, but it's exactly opposite than everybody else. And that is the point of the golden circle. So every single organization on the planet functions on 3 levels, and that is what we do, how we do it, and why we do it. Every organization and everyone that works for them hopefully knows exactly what they do every day. These are the products they sell, the services they offer. These are the books and the programs that we offer to our patrons. For the individual, this is the individual job that you do on a daily basis. If you're lucky and doing your job well and have a great employer, usually you know how to do what you do when you go to work. These are the strengths, the values, and the guiding principles and the training that you get to do the job that you do. These are also the unique features and abilities that you have that set you apart from other organizations who do something similar. It's what makes you different from the rest of the set that you belong to. And if you're lucky, some organizations and individuals even know why they do what they do. But this is usually not the case. This is your purpose, your cause, or your belief, and it can answer a couple of questions for you. Why do you get out of bed in the morning? Why does your organization exist? And why should it matter to anyone else? Making money, and in our case, patron counts and the statistics that we gather are not why we exist. Revenues, profits, salaries, and statistics are simply a result of what we do. The why is about your contribution and impact and your service to others. And you can see how this connects beautifully to libraries. The why also should inspire. The golden circle can be communicated from 2 directions, from the outside and from the inside. And most people are comfortable communicating from the outside in, starting with what. And the reason being is because we naturally communicate that way. It's easiest for us to understand what exact behavior looks like. So I'm going to give you a example of how a library could communicate, starting with their what they do. We are a library. With our top-notch librarians, we'll be able to find anything you need. Access to our multimedia collection will provide you plenty of options for leisure reading, binge watching, research material, or things to entertain the kids. Speaking of kids, come check out our story forest in the children's room and cross the bridge of discovery to join us for a story time. There are things for mom and dad as well. In fact, we offer lots of classes and events for all ages. If you need a place for a meeting, we have you covered there too. Come be a patron of our library. So the problem with this kind of communication model, I mean, it's not bad. You've got your hows and your whats. your hows and your whats, but they do not inspire anybody. You're just basically listing a bunch of features. And even though this makes rational sense to most people, that's not really what drives behavior. Starting with what is what commodities do. Starting with why is what leaders and leading organizations do. And leaders and leading organizations inspire people. So let's try from a different standpoint and communicate starting with why. So you're communicating from the inside out. This is where you start with the purpose or cause first. And the reason that you want to do this is because this drives decision-making and behavior, and it taps into the part of the brain that actually influences behavior first. So let me read the same marketing for the same library, but starting with why. We believe in servicing the needs of everyone so that together our diverse community can grow towards a successful and prosperous future. We do so with a variety of services, multimedia collections, multi-use facilities, and a team of professionally trained staff ready to meet the needs of any community member who walks through our doors. We are a world-class library. Come see for yourself. If the people at this library actually believe in their why, which is the first statement, and think and act and communicate starting with their why, it will attract patrons to them for that very reason. And by the way, if you can always communicate with your why, that's going to build the relationship that create advocates for your library as well. And the reason is because relates to the structure of the brain. And as I mentioned earlier, we are a feeling creature. There's no way to stop those emotions. So remember that flow chart at the beginning. Your feelings and your perceptions are what influence your actions. And feelings can do a lot of good things for us too, but they can also make us uncomfortable at times. Like, how many times when somebody asks you why, do you pull back a little bit? Why questions are kind of hard to answer because they create an emotional response in you at the same time. If you ask somebody a what question, it's usually a lot easier because they're explaining steps. The why can also motivate you to do something. It makes you passionate, and it creates an emotional connection to organizations and companies, and it leads to loyalty and trust. In Simon's book, Start With Why, he uses several companies and leaders as examples, and one that's easily to remember is Apple, and how their customers are kind of almost a cult following, and they will do and buy Apple for anything having to do with Apple because they're loyal customers, and it's because they have that connection with the company. So let me go ahead and explain this on a different level by comparing the golden circle to a slice of the human brain. So if you take a cross section of the human brain, it corresponds easily with the golden circle. The outside of the brain, or the what, corresponds with the neocortex, which is the newest part of our brain. It's the Homo sapien part of our brain, and it is responsible for rational and analytical thought and where language comes from. That's where when we think of things, it filters through and spits out as language. Now, the limbic part of our brain is the middle two sections, the how and the why, and this is where feelings are, like trust and loyalty, which I've previously mentioned. It is also responsible for your behavior, but the problem is it has no capacity for language. So you can see where the disconnect is built in. Communication from the outside in creates a way for people to understand vast amounts of information that's complicated, like features, benefits, facts, and figures. But it simply does not drive human behavior. Communicating from the inside out, however, speaks to the emotions first, and the same part of the brain that also drives behavior and decision making. I mean, most people think that they choose products based on features, price, what have you. And that's because we think we're rational creatures when we're really not. If we were truly rational, we would never make a decision based on loyalty or the way we feel. We would never care about trust or relationships with a business or with an organization, and we would only be about the numbers. And we know that we don't always do this. We very, very often choose one product, service, or company over another because of the way it simply makes us feel. The limbic system, which controls our emotions, feelings, and decision making, but remember, has no capacity for language, is what we use for decisions. Decisions using our limbic system and then rationalize that decision through parts of the brain, the neocortex, so that we can communicate it through words. You can explain the difference between repeat business and loyalty using similar language. Repeat business means that someone is willing to continue to do business with you because of a reason that makes sense. It's because the price is right, you have the right kind of features, and you're convenient. As soon as that convenience is no longer available, often a customer will leave or find something else to replace you with. Loyalty is completely different. And this is where Apple comes into play, because Apple products are usually a lot more expensive than others, but they still have loyal customers. Loyal customers and patrons mean that sometimes people will choose to suffer some kind of inconvenience to continue to do business with you. They may pay more, travel further, and proudly defend and champion your brand, even if it is less convenient, because they feel connected to it. So I can even use our library as an example. We have several consortia in the region, and we have reciprocal borrowing within those consortia, and we often have several smaller library systems that will get those reciprocal borrowing cards and travel further to a larger city to get more product, even though, so they can get it faster, so they can get what they need quicker. So that's a way to say that they're loyal to their reading, to the type of library that has the stuff that they need for them. Another component of loyalty is authenticity. On the slide is the actual definition of authenticity. And when we say that something is authentic, it usually means it's the real deal, and it holds kind of a lot of weight in our perception. And it kind of ties in beautifully to the why concept, because to be authentic and to communicate your purpose to the public, you have to have all aspects of the golden circle working in unity. So you would have clarity of why, discipline of how, and consistency of what. If you don't know why you do what you do every day, then how can you assume that other people know why you're doing what you're doing? And if you don't know how to do the things that you're doing, and if those things are not aligned with your values, then how would anybody else be able to do that? And at the same time, everything you say and everything you do must be consistent with what you believe. After all, we live in a tangible world, so the customer and the patrons are actually looking to see what you believe and if it is tangible by what you're doing. Simon's famous quote is, "People don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it." And then he goes on to say, "And what you do simply serves as the tangible proof of what you believe." You can also take the golden circle and turn it into a 3D model of a cone, and it then turns into a wonderful way that great organizations are also structured. So in a three-dimensional cone system, at the top is going to be the why, and this would be a great leader, a strong board, or even a good friends group that has a good vision for your library and a great staff. And on the second level down is your how level, and these are the people that take that vision and put it into life, and put that vision into life. And then on the bottom level is the what, and then again, these are the things that the organization does and to make the vision tangible. An organization communicates its why through everything it says and does: the marketing, the products and services that the company provides, everything. In fact, if you take that cone and turn it on its side, you've got the ideal communication tool, and it will always remember to start with why when you communicate. Remember the library, the way that to start with why. We believe in servicing the needs of everyone so that together our diverse community can grow toward a successful and prosperous future, starting with the vision instead of starting with listing what you have to offer and what you are. So don't think of the cone as top-down management. It truly is a vision, mission down view of the organization. So you're going to have a strong organizational structure. You're going to have clarity of why, discipline of how, and consistency of what. So everyone is operating at their most authentic. And when you have that saturation of belief, you create a culture. That's why a lot of those companies that you hear about, used to hear about Zappos being such a great place to work. It's because they had a strong work culture, which of course then in turn leads to job satisfaction. So how does the individual person fit into all of this? Because, you know, it's a large concept and it basically talks towards organization, but everybody has their own individual why. And to stay connected to your organization, your colleagues, and even your profession, and of course then not to get burned out, is the idea of nested whys. And this came from the second book that talks about the why principle, called Finding Your Why. And you can think about it in the same principle as a bird in a nest, so nested whys. You've got the tree, which is the organization, then you've got the branches that would be, say, a department that you work in, and then there might be another branch that's the team in that department, and then you've got your nest that you nestle into that branch with you inside as the bird. So nested why organization, at an organizational level, it's going to impact customers because it is the overall reaching purpose, cause, or belief, or why the organization exists. And it's going to help customers by connecting to their lives in some kind of way because the purpose, cause, or belief impacts them. And it helps employees at the same time because the employees believe in the why and they have a direct, and they feel a direct connection to it, successful employees. And employees are actually the people who make the why actionable. But to be successful and to be connected, they need to also be able to see their contribution in action, and so that it makes an impact. At the same time, the department's why does something similar, but that department may have its own purpose, cause, and belief that ties into the company's. And again, how does it help customers? It addresses more specifically what part of the demographic that it's helping, and it has a more direct connection to the customer. And what does the department and team do specifically to make those customers' lives better? It also helps the employee by bringing them to a closer connection to the company's why by having a departmental why. So you can start seeing the nested connection that comes down the pike. Employees make the department's why actionable just like the company's, and again, they need to see that contribution in action so that it makes some kind of impact. And then on a personal level, this is your why, your very personal why. We are not just our work. This is why you get out of bed in the morning. This is your own purpose, cause, and belief. And actually, the best way to define it is this is you at your very best. And for Simon, he goes even further to say, this is how you impact other people's lives and help make humanity better. That's in his why statement, which I can never remember. It's very profound. That's in his, is to make the world a better place in some aspect, shape, or form. So your why should function, your own personal why functions inside and outside of work. So tying all this into libraries to get a little more specific with libraries, we are very nested creatures. We have a huge tree with lots of branches, and this is my representation of the big picture that we have as a profession. So at the top, we have the profession itself, which if you've gone through any kind of formal training in librarianship, you understand the big picture that librarians and libraries stand for as a democratic institution. And we have the American Library Association as our parent organization that helps communicate that, work with governing bodies, and to spread the word to keep us relevant and just help us as a profession. And then below that, we have specialty sections within those that are still national organizations, say Public Library Association, the Association of Rural and Small Libraries. And then below that, of course, then you've got state associations, and state libraries would also fall under that. And even state associations sometimes have sections, committees that librarians can work at to help bring all this together to connect their why for them. And as public librarians, often we have a couple of more that we have to throw in, and I consider these kind of wrench branches that you may not want to nest on, but you kind of do still. And that would be your governing body. And depending on your relationship, these can sometimes be problematic, but they are part of what we have to work with. And then, of course, you've got your library, and then you've got a department if you work in a department or a branch, and then you've got yourself. So the nesting can go as high or as low as you need to feel connected to what makes you contented and happy. And for me, as an administrator and somebody who helps run the library in my parish, when I'm at my lowest and feeling very uninspired and a little browbeaten from either a really bad patron encounter or um, negative employees, then I go back all the way to the top to remind myself why I come to work every day, and that there's a cause that is bigger than myself that I can connect back to. And usually it's ALA's code of ethics, because they're very inspiring to me, and so that would be my highest branch or trunk that I would reach back to. So you remember this guy, and the problem with him is that he's fallen out of his nest, and he's in the state of exhaustion or physical or emotional strength or motivation due to prolonged stress. And he could possibly head for burnout. And the way that Simon talks about this is he says that your why is out of focus, or you have a fuzzy why. So you're falling out of your nest, and the reason that your why is fuzzy is because it's out of clarity. And this, of course, breaks the chain of authenticity. You can no longer function as an authentic person in your job if you do not have clarity of that why any longer. And for me, it leads to a lot of what I call the disconnection, the disillusionment, the dissatisfaction, disruption, discord, disliking, disgust. I mean, the list can go on, into the fact where you can actually say, I hate my job, or I hate this, or I hate doing this, those kind of things that we don't want to get to. So how can you reconnect professionally when you get to that point? These are a couple of questions you can ask yourself. What is your purpose for coming to work? What is your connection to the library itself? What do you like about your job? That's a really good one to go back to. How do you feel at work? How do you fit into your department? And what energizes you on and off the job? Because remember, you're not just your work. There are a couple of ways that you can reconnect easily professionally, and this goes back to the nesting. Attending a national conference or a state conference is always a good way to either build a new branch or to graft that branch back on better, or however you want to think about it. You could also volunteer in your association, because this creates new colleagues for you, also strengthens the impact that you're making for not only the association, but for the profession itself. I always like to visit other libraries. That's a way that I can, go on alert and see what other libraries are doing, get re-inspired, reconnected, see other happy patrons outside of your library if you've been having a bad experience. Helping a coworker on a project, cross-train to see another's impact so you can get back to the bigger picture. Helping a patron, that's always one of my things. If I'm having the worst day as an administrator, if I can go back on the floor and find one patron to help, that usually can help center me back to where I need to be. And then a big one is creating a community partnership. And the beautiful thing about that is that it also will create another branch for your nest to sit on. So like I mentioned, we're not just our work. So how do you reconnect personally? Because the two need to live side by side to be a healthy individual, both on and off the job. You can think of, if you know what your own personal why statement is or have an idea for it, it may be time to revisit that. It may be time to change jobs or departments to realign what you're doing on a day-to-day basis to get that why back in focus. And that would also bring in, the correct nesting that's possible for about it. And things that you can do personally for yourself is to try a new hobby or a sport, visit a museum, or go to another library, reconnect with friends or family, get a pet. That one is one that I was without a pet for a while and then went and finally got a dog again, and it was like, how did I live those 2 years without a dog? So there are lots of things that re-inspire us and basically put our bird back in the nest and line up our clarity of why. So where does that leave us today? It leaves us as WHY-brarians. You're connected, motivated, inspired, impassioned, happy, and successful. And when you are all those things, it will not only show, it will show at home, in your department, in your library, and most importantly, in your community. And I know I blew through that really quickly because I'm unfortunately a fast talker. So we've probably got plenty of time for questions. Oh, I can go back. Yes. Reconnecting personally. Sorry. Thank you, Karen. Hopefully you got something out of that. I wish that we weren't in. I tried to think how to connect this to our weird times, but it's. I mean, this really is more of a business model that is hard to connect to that more personal thing. But if you're not, but I can say if you're not happy overall, and are not centered, then it gets to a problem. Yeah. Yeah, slides will be made available tomorrow. I think Angie's going to send those out with the handout, which has a bunch of resources that I recommend for not just for the Simon Sinek model, but for other things that have inspired me over the years. There's some fun ones on there, including a book by Dolly Parton, which is one of my favorite people. So have a look at those books. And if you can go through the process of finding your why with your department or with your branch, I highly recommend that too. I've done that with my department here at the library that I manage, and it was a really great experience to see what a group of people think about when they come to work. It's a real eye-opener because as a supervisor, you see stuff so much different than the people on the front lines, and it was a very inspiring thing for me to go through that process with them. So the Find Your Why book actually gives you step-by-step process to do that with other people.
All right, do we have any more questions?
Doesn't look like it.
Well, then I will let everyone go for today. Thank you for attending. Thank you, Jeremy, for presenting. If any questions come to me about your presentation, I will send them along to you, Jeremy.
Okay, I will be happy to answer them for you.
All
Thanks,
right,
everybody.
thank you, everyone. Have a good day.